Okay, so like the new promotion right now for like in the world of control online and in that with like then the pay contacting like mail up help like the different like this about micro promotions that like this might be all connected to Kaiba is definitely on the like even while Miller right now will be for will be totally putting a fake acting as if that he doesn't know anything about like the soul translate stuff and everything. When in actuality that's the case might have been that Kaiba might have had like secret contacts with Black Miller this and that time might be the case, definitely my preferred. And it might have been solely through their hidden secret planning between like Kaiba and Miller that all this would be happening. And like the NSA from seeking like help from exactly Miller, like basically the NSA even knowing exactly who to seek help from being Miller, like that as well will be totally according to like Kaiba's secret planning. And like Kaiba might have been that the person who might have made this like might have referred to Miller for like the NSA to seek help from might be also the case that Leland was friend. So definitely in exchange that what Kaiba might have even sought from like the NSA might have been in exchange for like the help of Kaiba and in exchange since like Kaiba has been really simply working at like around like in like the developing of like so translation system and like and everything. So definitely like in exchange like it might have been definitely Kaiba that might have leaked this like information about like the full translation, secret development of like the full translation system of like group and everything to like the NSA and everything. And it might have been Kayaba that might have offered like made deal with like the NSA to that hand over that the system of like Harris to that the NSA in exchange for like the NSA providing a safe haven like or like a safe location or like safe place to like stay in like the US in like the world of like the sort of like and for Kayaba. So since like Kayaba after like the sort of online incident like since like Kayaba is like a hidden criminal like basically I'm totally putting since then like Kayaba might have been only on the internet might have been only hiding from like the security officials and from like the police and everything. So definitely Kayaba might have wanted that safe and secure place to stay and like it might be for like IBAT to ensure that in the saying that the virtual world, like the world of like the sort of online and that could be able to like provide that for like IBAT in exchange for like IBAT making this handing over like the artificial bus light of and it's to like the NSA while also simultaneously through that attack of that through the NSA that basically help from Miller and that way through like Miller and team in the real world like taking over like the ocean location like I at that point it also able to like get back like grudge and revenge against like Kirito from like the ocean location for, through like that something like by diving into like the with virtual world on the world business might be Kairos plan, might be the case speculative web direction. Speculative web direction is for like the NSA, being able to like directly get involved and take over like portions of the location and steal, postal steal like the artistic like type of Alice will be only for like step being that much of like an extreme importance for like the NSA due to solely to like prevent like a war between like Japan and like the US in like the Sword Art Online and it might be like the case, especially my preference. So like stealth will be that much of like an extreme importance of like the and like for like the and that might be the sole reason for like and Kaiba might be totally aware of all this and so it might and it might be Kaiba to be taking advantage of that whole situation by that offering this stealth to like the by offering them to like might be the case and might be what might have happened until now. It's definitely my personal ambition. But this is, I think, like in like the past, it also revealed that like the design of like the Medicare Void was like where also had like involvement in like the creation of like the design of like, the Medicare Void. So definitely my book impressions that like it might have been definitely not at all a rainbow that might have designed like the Medicare Void, but it might have definitely been Kayaba secretly in like the like Kayaba while after like sort of online incident like I'm like after that like once like it had defeated Kayaba and after that, like I'm preferring like once like if you have defeated like like the sort of online and it took and like Kaba might have also been on the run. So like to escape from like the police and I'm looking back then it might have been the police info that might have helped Kaba out a lot. And what might have happened would be like it might have been in a similar manner how recently that Kirdo had been like transported to when they transported through the cargo ship to like the option that location and that in a similar kind of manner that might have been how Black Kaba from Japan might have like escaped through that the cartouche and might have made it to that the US even back then might have been what might have happened in like the world of the animals or around might have been like the reason for like the police officials like not being like capture or harass like Kaiba in Japan not being able to like capture Kaiba might be the limit so like from that point on like Kaiba might have had this like massive ego getting crushed basically like defeated by Kirito and with like answer but I think like I think Kirito back then going in the past that one get to have defeated Kaiba and like the sort of like this that world so like friendly that absolute grudge and absolute sense of revenge against Kirito might have been formed with Kaiba and the Kaiba from that back way back then itself might have straight away up like Kit can making it to like 3 years like might have and might have been only in hiding in like 3 years might have been able to see the Kaiba so that it might have been I don't struggle for like Kaiba to like stay or if stay hidden and survive even in like 3 years might have been like situation with like Kaiba definitely not but like definitely uh, uh it might have been Ringo consistent help from that Ringo if that like might have made it possible for like Kaiba even during his like complete hiding phase in like 3 years like to later when Ringo that might have simply provided like a computer and facility and setup a secret facility and setup for like you still work on like next plan to like totally get that absolute from that point on while Kaiba might have been targeting Kirito and might have wanted like in that absolute friggin' jump to might have been at that point that like it might have been a Ringo that might have thoroughly helping Kaiba. The Tom Kaiba's plan might have been the case in the film and like then it's like it might have been then that like Kaiba might have planned it's like concept of like the medieval bird. Might have been the case the film of the America. And it might have been back then that like Kaiba might not only targeted Sikokas, might also seen Sikokas like that actual person that like Kaiba would probably trick and take advantage of through Ringo working to use the Ringo to like and manipulate like Kikoka and that way like eventually like use Kikoka to like Kirito and to eventually get and bring Kirito to like the situation. It might have been definitely the attack of like that as well. Kaiba might have been according to the Kaiba's orders to get Kirito into such a situation and that way to like get kicked off transferred to like he sent to like open up the location and they are like exactly for like but in time for by exactly in time while like the and while like Winner and team will be counting their attacks on like open up the location and will be attacking to like freeze Alice's flashlight so that like at that point like all the security forces will like open up the location will be brought down so that like at that point Kaiba and Ringo Kaiba will be totally free to like launches that with prevent against like Kirito and add in like proportion but while having them trapped in like working the location which might have been like the limit plan of Kaiba might have been the case humans rotation so like after like the whole Sword Art Online this it's when like the top chapter like Kirito had to Kaiba in like Sword Art Online like and after that like after like escaping from like Japan and like what Kaiba might have been like Kaiba might have began his plan to like solely targeting Kirito to like get revenge on Kirito along with the Gams as well. So like Kaiba might have started off with like his like concept of like the Medicare boy while targeting Kikoka to like eventually trick Kikoka Kaiba might have thought of like basically creating this like design for like this concept of like Medicare boy and might have given that Kaiba might have made the design and might have for like a Medicare boy and might have given it to like Ringo and might have totally that was like Ringo said like that Kaiba might have sent Ringo to like approach Kikoka. So this is like the sign of like the Medicare boy and Kikoka might have been straight away blown away by that the concept of like the Medicare word and that so that Kikoka might have enthusiastically might have been straight away different with like Ringo and might have assumed that like it was all of Ringo's experience but and Kikoka might have straight away to Ringo to be part of like Kikoka's team might have been what might have happened but not permission. So maybe still Ringo might have been staying in that view, but like still Ringo might have so maybe part of the Kikoka's team and they might have been remotely working together on like the concept of like medical bird and everything. Maybe it might have been what might have happened, but might have been so that way like like eventually once like the Kaiba might have kept on giving all the data and everything like required for like and help required for like the absolute completion of like the creation of the medical bird or to like Ringo, this is like Ringo on top of like giving the design of like the medical boy to keep on like Ringo might have even like just passed over like this like for such by Kaiba in like the name pertaining to the it being all Orintos brilliant, like so might have made all the section to like Koka and Kikoka might have been getting repeatedly in from super look like Orintos brilliant and that way like finally like the black Orintos like in a felt like and looking like the into void Kikoka might have been able to like complete like the creation of like the medical void without create today by the involvement of having like the past settling on the brain. So at that point, like Kikoka might have been extremely frustrated, like, and might have been feeling so extremely grateful towards like Ringo at that time. Might have been the case of Lima correction. And might have been like the point once like community about like creation will be completed. That might have been like the point when like I have according to like plan like might have decided to like make himself visible to like Kikoka. So like I mean that might have been like point when like after like the completion of like the medical work on Kikoka was like signing Parental so much like I'm feeling grateful to like at that point like according to like I was plan like go my email to like go about like it's not being since that time it's not being like industrial but it was being like I was like and that like I was totally changed into like a new person and everything and then that the whole remote like contact between like Ikopa and Kaiba might have happened and like they might have impacted between Kaiba and like maybe it might have been a phone call and everything might have happened between like Ikopa in Japan and like Kaiba from him like security and like the US might have been what happened. The climate finish and Kikoka might have speaking to like Kaiba and like Kaiba might have managed to like through that interaction might have managed to like even more manipulate and convince somebody convince like Kikoka maybe as well as Higa that basically Kaiba is like a going to change person like that he's not like the same person basically that had basically like created like the collective solar online game and like had done that crime and everything. So like Kaiba might have managed to like and convince that people that like should never totally change person and like when that interaction that might have been when the Kaiba might have told people about like this contract and plan to like take like the military point further and about us like about like the whole translation technology as well as like the virtual world on the world and everything like all these ideas like I got so that invitation might have so people like might have been what might have happened is certainly not necessary everything. So like that as well but like that might have like as well might have created excited like Kikoga and might have so like Kikoga might have decided to like team up with like Kaiba from that point on might have been the case with legal interaction. While like maybe Higa might have been initially still not fully convinced that like it might have been yeah like Higa might have been even back then might have been such long term good friends with like Kikoga that might have put like it might have been Kikoga that might have convinced Higa that basically that Kaiba like probably have changed into like a totally different person. Like, that like they could like totally use like Kaiba's brilliance for like creating proof of like humanity along this lines of like the program might have or that might have eventually Higa might have or gotten content might have been what might have like he does well might have started to like subscribe from that point on. Might have been what might have happened. So like it might have been from that point on that like they might have began like their home. Kaiba might have given like the design of like the industrial location of like building like the industrial location and everything, and that being like the main base of like where like the actual building where like the actual main base of like the working world of the world and everything like would be built would be along the lines like I might have given all plans and ideas to like Kikoka. And from that point on, the brain they make a start to like steadily begin like the process of like building like the actual location and like all the machines there and like the working load of like Goka and Cyber might have make up like a part in like the secret out in that location. Especially since like stealth would is like extremely would be a high priority for Kaiba even at that point due to that Kaiba being criminal and so like definitely so this might be like for Iboga and back to be able to like work together with that actual still like and to complete like the creation of like those person one control like the ocean of location might have been even created and might have been told to like Iboga as like an idea by Kaiba might have been like the supplement Iboga might have told me agree to all of that and like those in the location and everything might have been what might have happened in like the parts especially like also, the Chilean friend shows that like all three captains might be like individuals in like the real world who might be secretly connected to or related to Kaiba might be the case with the Chilean friend. And so like hence like Kaiba might have probably have that absolute soft corner towards like uh and that might be the case that before like towards like family of like those three that might be the case that human preference. So there might be some sort of relation between that the those three that as well as like that might be the case that relation might be the reason for like even after like Kirito had that eliminated that in back in that Soda Online game like still like the fact that like that survive like might have been solely due to that this special considerations that Kayaba might have given to that the three different might be like the case, especially Michael Frame so and so like Michael Frame and like the three different after their survival might have been probably extremely grateful and conducted to Kayaba might also be like the case at that point, is definitely one premise. So like my doctor ambitions were like according to like Kaiba's plans like in that Kaiba it might have been exactly after like the whole gun game online like in the like after like Kirito had like I think that defeated and captured like two of the them that maybe it might be at that point that like like during that exact time period like like Kaiba's like the combination of both the location as well might have been completed respectively when training. So like Kaiba might have been moving on to more of this like might at that point like Kaiba might have been totally focused on like basically this Kirito and as one of the first to like get Kirito move to like the next step of like next phase of like Kaiba's plans to like get Kirito to like the ocean double location for like Kaiba to like deliver that as to revenge of like, Kirito by trapping Kirito and like to the what might have been the case definitely when training. So like it might have been up like the gun game like after like Kaiba I think like the third that like Kaiba might have contacted him and might have told him, might have totally manipulated him and might have told him to totally get revenge on like Kirito. And basically to might have told where exactly and like Kaiba might have found might have already through his like might have already figured out the exact location of the common Kirito and everything. So so Kaiba's help might have been how like the third attempt might have managed to like in like the real world might have managed to like find Kirito and might have managed to like even um that way like that attack by like the third attempt on Kirito when happening like might have been not according to the Kaiba's secret orders to like that might have been the case that minimum cameras. And also my good versions are like the fact that like Kikoka had put up like that whole job offer and I think like and basically just had attracted Kirito to that entering and playing like the virtual god of like control even from all the way back from like Japan itself like I'm doing that as well definitely I'm thinking like people are putting that job out of that as well my job in definitely according to like the stealthy plans of like Kaiba. Because definitely remember Miss like people might have been okay unaware of definitely remember so like definitely it might have been Kaiba that might have designed that job was of the people and might have understand it in such an exact way in that like Kaiba might have been a certain that like definitely attracting your Kirito to applying for that job and that they get editors to enter to meet up with Lucky Dog and basically to enter and play like the virtual world of the world and everything to test it out and everything. So that way to have like a bond between like crypto and crypto as you actually have it. So that like basically that way through Kaiba's like management manipulation, so Kaiba will be able to like get Kirito to without realizing trap Kirito and by bring Kirito eventually to that location once like according to like Kaiba's the plan and for us like once like the third Dutchman would be attacking Kirito at that point for like Kaiba to like manipulate Kirito to basically like the name treatment to like bring territory like the ocean of location exactly in time while Kaiba would be making that deal with like the NSA and would be getting that the NSA to like approach Miller as well. Kaiba would be totally having contact with like and for like Miller as well might be someone who might have totally been part of like the Solar Online team of Kaiba and like that might have been also the case that Lee might friend. So that's might have a Miller as well that might have been a survivor of the Solar Online game in like might have been also the case that Lee friend. So that way, once like Miller and team in the real world will be attacking and taking over like the ocean of location. So that like people does like entire security like the ocean of location like as once like all of the will be taken out like Kaiba to like hopefully do as he pleases and this leads straight away like allow like the straight away hand over like the other influx like of like and to then the say once like Miller and team to be that thoroughly bring down like security and like the ocean of location and taking over like the ocean of location would be along the lines of different Kaiba might have planned and time to select execution of like strategy. definitely my business. So like at that point, like definitely with all the securities and like broken up the location and everything down and like Miller and team that in like the ocean of location taking over like ocean of location at that point Kaiba probably being able like to have pieces and like from that point on like as part of like dealing with like the NSA like in like the animal like product and like usually Kaiba would always have a safe location uh, and would have to like run and hide anymore. Uh, instead of that, Kaiba connect all these just to stay all different. We have like not hide anymore for like the remaining of Kaiba's like and that for that like when it's time like Kaiba will like deliver that image in like Kirito. So like I come to my permission for preparing right now with like Miller and team taking over like those in location that delivering like the third section as well would be okay right now in like the person would be present in like those in location. But it's definitely one three ambition. So like I'm thinking like two possible like like the third section making it to like the ocean turtle location either through like by taking flight up like attacking Kirito like according to like kind of like a remote and like like we might have like the third option might have managed to like either escape and make it to like ocean turtle location uh, through like the very same cargo ship that had like transported Chito to like ocean turtle location from the time like a different navy that like if I think that Kaiba who like Kaiba's like manipulation of Kikoka like Kikoka might have not realized while Kaiba might have told Kikoka that like the like friend of like Kaiba whom Kaiba wants to like bring to that the ocean level location along with that Kiriko and that way Kaiba might have told Kikoka about like then about like and that way like Kaiba might have said some sort of like a fake name for like the third section and might have told manipulate and trick Kikoka by saying that like Kaiba for in that way. Kikoka might have agreed and Kikoka might have brought like the third section of the next to the different cargo ship and along with like Kirito, in which like Kirito probably like taking that location might have been also the case like one possibility that I'm observing. So like that's the case that like so that can even before like the infiltration by Black Miller and teams might have been present already in like ocean of location like once like Kirito was dropped in like ocean of location like at that point said that the Fiona as well might have quickly entered into like the ocean of location. It's like one possibility that I'm remembering. The other possibility that I'm remembering is for like the third difference like attack on Kirito while Kirito might have been transported by like the cargo ship to like ocean that location even before like the cargo ship even made it to like ocean that location the main like pro Kaiba entering those help like entering like the third difference might have flew to uh, flew to like the US and might have totally met with uh, Miller and Maito Lab, and that way Lab in like the current taking over of the tools in that location by the lab and team that definitely the third that then as well might be present in like the current team of Miller during the current integration of the tools in that location might be also the case of Lehman Therapy. So like one of these two positives what I'm looking for might be the case of like the Lehman Therapy. So like definitely able to bring uh, without the creative lamp, definitely bring that Asuna trophy like demanding to like Picota that definitely she has to like full dive into like the working world but underworld to like save Kirito and like to have Kirito get back his like access to his like self image and definitely I'm looking right now that like Picota himself like have revealed that basically he wants to like retrieve like the artificial subject of like Alice before like the interpreters can like definitely so as part of like, the plan of like Picota definitely Picota himself will be definitely wanting once like them so now they're losing all hopes of like being able to like make and understand of like the extreme critical situation and everything and like the need extreme need to like save Kirito as well as like Asuna and as well as like basically Asuna will be finally giving up all hope of like her being able to like make and understand. So like at that point like Asuna straight away deciding to like challenge and to continue to and like to settle things and basically to keep the condition of individual as that like basically the winner gets to like take the decision and so like that way like I'm doing in lecture you're going to go through the great things like I'm definitely solely due to like and I'm doing like that such battle happening for like Asuna while fighting up against like Aris to and I'm looking that totally being due to like Asuna not at all used to like play in like the virtual world of control like the scenario that I'm telling. Yet, like I'm looking like go through such experience basis, but like Asuna finally managing to like really managing to like finally and like the fight in like the draw, like the scenario that I'm looking. But still, I'm only playing Asuna not being able to defeat Alice, but like I'm sure the fight ending in like draw. And I'm looking like at that point I'm looking like it would be Selka that would be like managing to like something in eventually Selka by then would be like totally liking Asuna and like totally trusting even though Selka won't give like understand like things that Asuna will be saying like Selka uh would be totally getting that strong feeling that Asuna is like with and genuine character. So like definitely Selka will be having that trust on Asuna. So it will be after that fight will be ending up in a draw. It will be through Selka's like intervention that like that Alice, even though in an extreme direction man of like still agreeing to like Asuna interacting with like Kirito. It's like the scenario that I'm sorry. Regardless of how much Asuna will be attempting to like get Kirito's access to like his like self-image back like I'm putting Asuna repeatedly attempting and repeatedly failing his like scenario that I'm putting. And eventually I'm putting that another attack by like the Ops and Goblins and happening and like in like that very next attack that I'm delivering by the Ops and Goblins from like the other I'm delivering possibly that attack happening not in like the town of Roulette, but like in that location, possibly like the town of Roulette, where like Asuma's home, where like Alice's home is. Alice currently is living with like Kirito, that they are bring like the next attack by like those black gold is happening as like the scenario that I'm maybe like without with the prodigy of information probably putting like Alice might be like the actual thought of like actual lot of like the role of like the inhabitant class, which might be actually a human. Uh, might be the case of Newman and so that as electric compulsive Newman might have during some sort of like a fight or like a war that might have taken place in like after three in like the past that as when she might have been in the and like might have wandered into like the environment and might have that way and that from that point like Alice's like father like the village elder of like a role in like might have just ended up by sheer coincidence might have ran into like uh, the to like the young Alice who might be going to like where she was at that point, and so he might have took her in and like that basis and like Alice might have believed that maybe um that the villager was like Alice's father might be the case. So like Selka might be in actually like the opinion of the villager might be also the case. Definitely my friend. Definitely that way like I'm the yeah like I'm the so like I'm the friend also for like the repeated attacks by the outside of maybe being also through like the orders of like the queen ruler who might be like the ruler of like the entire class of like her attempt to kind of spread her into like through the attack of the government and governments to for them to like find and get back her daughter Alice her daughter like and like the queen would be like from like the queen point of view like Alice's name would be totally something different. It's definitely memorable. So uh, so it might be the reason for like the minions from like the dark the flying minion from like the dark tree like targeting Alice like by even making it being able to like access to like and reach like the very top of like the center of the land basically from that point on from that point like that flying minion from the dark tree even targeting Alice might have been like the flying minion attempting to like affect Harris might be the case, but Lima so like the flying minion might be able to have like way more of like capability memory and capability to like recognize Harris when compared to like the orphan knowledge might be the case with Lima So luckily I'm maybe a scenario where like due to like the recent attack by the goblins I think in like the town of Roland in the town of Roland being stopped by Alice like I'm looking like another attack without eventually happening and like maybe which will be targeting and in that attack like I'm looking definitely like Asuna might have even at that point won't be getting this like this like self-image access back so like in that attack definitely Alice in front of Kirito and Asuna like and then Gerard Asuna like Alice getting dragged away and taken away and affected away. So like the scenario that I and seeing that might be the what would be probably triggering like the memories and everything within Kirito and bring about that phrase situation like resulting in like that access to like self-image happening for like Kirito since like Alice in like the past was like abducted away from right in front of Kirito by spending the grenade and that has created that much of like a scar and shock within like Kirito's mind. So like I'm doing like that repeated kind of like incident like creating that deja vu kind of situation which might be on the at that point because to get back this like memory like the and like access to like self image and that will be how like I'm still remember from like how Kirito the turning back not necessarily like the scenario that I'm referring. But like even at that point, like I'm thinking, like for the scenario to be like at that point, possibly being like a flying minion that might abduct away that Alice and basically take Alice to like the data in time. It's like the scenario that I'm defining that. So the major points of all that happening exactly in time while like the infiltrators would be finally getting the access to like the artificial flux like of like Alice, and they will be like as they will be transferring like the artificial flux like of Alice, and like as like the transferring process would be reaching like almost like 95 or like 98%. Like at that point is when I'm referring like Alice uh precisely and exactly by the point to like by the flying minion like getting abducted and taken and being taken and crossing like the last thing happening. That 98% situations like scenario that I'm doing. That way the transfer getting cancelled is like the scenario that I'm looking for. And that way I'm looking at that point like Kaiba getting that shock and basically Kaiba's like plans not going as smoothly from that point on. It's like the scenario that I'm doing. So like at that point Kaiba is having for like himself to like full time to like the virtual world of Underworld as like and using like super account of like from Stacia is like how like Kaiba, which would be having like way more superior powers, even more than like Twin Labs, definitely my friend. So, because it's like a super account, it's like the scenario that I was so like that way Kaiba could dive into like the virtual world from the world to from within like the virtual world of the world to like to while also simultaneously delivering a religion on like Kirito to also forcefully catch up and basically uh, uh, bring Alice to like the game industry so that like the people in like the person of the location like the real world would be like once again start like the transfer and like basically would be able to get as part of the like so like I'm just like I would be giving like the instructions for like Miller and team in like the in like those industrial locations for like one like and for them to like assess like the game progress of like it within like virtual world of Underworld from outside and once like type up within like the game would be like trained and to like the things that we have that points for them to like initiate like once again like the transfer process and like it's like much after giving this mission instruction like I but only full diving straight away full diving into like the virtual world of like Underworld in like an exciting manner to like that guy about quitting that basically without maturity that guy about will be able to like achieve his like current ultimate goal of like which might have been like his like ultimate goal ever since like his like defeated by Kirito like this in like the soul of online game like since then this might have been like his like ultimate goal to like probably have that rebattle against like Kirito and to deliver to defeat Kirito in that rebattle and then to deliver that absolute revenge on like Kirito and everything will be along the lines of that biggest priority in guy was like might have been some like the defeat of Kaiba in like Solar Online. It might have been like it is definitely my experience. But like once like Kaiba would be full diving like on the different like definitely before Kaiba would be full diving on the different like the third death run as well like at that point that telling Kaiba that like, he too wants to like full dive and want a share of that realistically want that share of like revenge against like Kirito. For like Kirito, I think like capturing like the first as well as second but it's definitely so like this is like kind of like the scenario that I'm looking so that way I was like I like the third left kind of would be during that point about the inspiration people that like those that look at like full diving into like the virtual world of the world as like the scenario that I'm looking over like and my game. And also my the reflections for like unlike in like it was like initial full diving into like the virtual world of underworld like from Japan from Kikoga's lab itself from the fact that even back then Kirito had that whole memory erasing thing happening with Kirito then back then itself like I'm looking like once like from the once like not only Kaiba but like also like the third attempt would be diving into that virtual world of underworld from like those in that location but I'm looking at once like Alice as well so we were diving into like the virtual world of underworld. Once like as soon as well would people diving into like the virtual world of underworld from like the ocean of location and like they won't be having any none of them will be having any sort of like memory loss. Not even as well will be having any sort of like memory loss. Uh even once they will be diving and appearing into like the virtual world of underworld. It's like the scenario that I'm missing all the time. So like that way, upon present on different ones like and you could be getting abducted away by the flying minion and would be taken to like the that way like at that point upon memory prevention at that point exactly like Kiddo getting back his like memory and everything self image and everything. So at that point like once again like Kid at that point also being shocked at seeing Asuna right standing right beside him and once again like the team of like Kirito and Asuna would be like with that absolute goal to like what we say as would be heading on to like the dark topic is like the scenario that I'm going to end of the revision. So like that way according to my sister in Muslim probably running like once like pendency of like the whole half of like the first world of control and everything will be over like in still once all that would be over, like I'm definitely crypto and crypto and all of that finally eventually managing to get back up, showing up with that assistant, then still managing to like get back up to show up, eventually show up to like go to that location, and that way Miller and so getting out of that was like the scenario that I'm and within that time definitely and like a battle totally happening within like within like the world wonderful first between like Kirito and like the third touchdown, which like it's will be only or for and defeating like the third touchdown. And like eventually finally able to find like a fight between like the gods Asia and like Kirito to Kaiba's like super account of like God Asia and Kirito happening, and like it will be like an entire war, but like in that war like that one was one fight between like Kirito and like God Asia may be happening. Is like the one possible scenario that I'm would like the more likely scenario that happened because like Kirito will be like the last thing that Kirito will be wanting would be to have like to track Asuna or like Alice into like a fight against like a Kaiba. So definitely maybe so that way like I'm just like and I'm just by then like Kaiba would be villainously revealing to like as like in like super account of words case here something like the virtual word on the word like would be really like Kirito that like it's Kaiba and all that like so like one fight between like Kirito and like the Dora stage that happening from within like the was one and eventually like I'm doing Kirito even through such extreme but still somehow managing to like the space yeah it's like the scenario that I'm like so like and by then like it would be when the whole backup Kikoka or like Higa the gentleman or somehow even while they will be in like in some kind of like situation definitely with like Ringo's presence in like the current home itself where like Kikoka has like locked Higa and locked himself along with like Higa and Asuna like since like Ringo as well is like along with them like Ringo still who is support of the impression would be still allied to Kaiba would be that way getting all of them into like an some kind of like situation eventually but still able to somehow Higa somehow most like them different like it might be to somehow still managing to like still they make get hold of like a cell phone somehow with that absence of them basically managing to like contact that the and get back up showing up uh, to the ocean top location and that way by the time like the Miller team would be getting captured like I'm probably putting like eventually like from like the ocean top location once back up arrives like Miller as well getting captured as well as like the third as well would be getting captured and arrested as like just an scenario that I'm definitely but like I'm the like Taiba still alone, Taiba alone still, and I'm the like Ringo as well. This time will be getting captured as well. It's like and upstairs like this another that I'm playing. Yet like I'm doing like Taiba alone still. I'll even still at the very last second, like to be still managing to like escape even from like the original location. It's like the scenario, finding scenario that I don't know the thing and that's the membership. Okay, so like the minimum prevention right now as for like Miller and Team Tech right now still being locked out and is unable to like access like the artificial data and it's like definitely bring some great them definitely bring like the scenario to be like definitely Kaiba will be showing up from his like secret room in like close in that location and then I'm also bring like definitely it will be through like Ringo and Kaiba that I'm also bring like Miller and Team would be able to that way make it towards like Iboka and that way like I'm sure them for threatening Tipoka is like the scenario that I'm also talking about to like to unlock and threatening Tipoka and Higa to like to the whole unlocking and uh, to have them like access like and transfer like as like that. So like I'm doing before for this will be happening I'm also bring definitely from like the current room in which like Tipoka and Higa um, along with like Ringo has like along with like Asuna as well has like locked themselves in like without a great delay like I'm doing that we Alice I mean like Asuna would be totally getting a Boga to have a full that be able to like full dive into like the working world of Underport to say crypto and Alice like the scenario that I was from the like what of what like the scenario that I'm doing so like I'm totally different by the time Ringo and Kaiba and all of them will be making that move and like will be entering into that lock of like Boga right now in like considering by then like once like Kaiba and ultimately Miller and ultimately join up to that room. Uh, as soon as situation would be as soon would be already in that system in that full time state within like the development. It's definitely memory. So that way I'm to bring like through like Ringo's help like and to bring definitely Kaiba and Ringo along with Black Miller and all of them would be definitely even still from like even bypassing like the current lock situation of like Miller and team is like the scenario that I'm looking like. Yeah, like I'm still thinking about the mission that like that way them accessing like the system and accessing and artificial flux like even from like the outside system itself. And yeah, like I'm putting ones like the 98 percentage of like and like the transferring of access like artificial flux like would be happening like at that point when I was in the same like the world of the universal world of the world like and will be getting affected by a flying minion and will be crossed over through like the dark way. It's like the scenario that I'm and that I'm fading and it will be at that point that I'm only my correction only running like Kaiba only it's really at that point it's deciding to like full dive into the commercial world of running world. And that Kaiba at that point would be assigning a Rinko to that to stand guard standing out where like Tiboka and Tiga would be put into like in different kind of situations like the scenario that I'm doing. While like right now we're bringing like the people who would be like full diving into like the since like it's now revealed that they have only around like 24 hours to like for Miller and team like execute like their mission. So like I'm bringing Kaiba as well would be totally in a hurry at that point. So definitely Kaiba from but like still Kaiba is totally feeling more confident. Kaiba will be totally thinking that easily. Since like it's only 24 hours that basically they have still within like the virtual world of underworld time is like totally different. Like basically 24 hours in like the real world would be most likely years, multiple years in like the virtual world underworld might be the case. Like so like I'm just that way. Kaiba would be totally feeling or confident that like he has like more than enough time to like to totally from within like the virtual world of underworld to like use that absolute something like a revenge to like it as well as Asuna would be along the lines and like Kaiba would be realistically thinking and basically that way like right now but with the, eventually along with like Kaiba the others that would be full time the friend would be like definitely I'm the friend like along with Kaiba like Miller as well as like this guy Wasago as well as like the other person in like Miller's team as well as like uh, as well as like the third Death as well. I'm looking like this much might be like the total villains that I'm looking would be full diving into like the virtual world of Underworld to like get Alice back from the Exarchate to like bring the country as well as like to as well as for like Kaiba to get like a prevention of the Kaiba as well full diving around. So it's like given the scenario that I'm looking for and that's the brain. So like most likely I'm going to bring like Kaiba totally assigning Miller and team that those individuals in are right now projecting will be along with like Miller will be eventually full diving into like work with world like I'm certain guy by that point assigning them the task to like probably bring Alice to like the from like the other page to like the industry when Kaiba would be totally only focusing on like basically finding Kirito and getting his like absolute revenge on like Kirito. You know, it's like the scenario that I'm looking for like I'm a brain. Okay, so like the name of the mention right now and for like I mean that's what I'm right now. Select the for my level account selected after I'm looking right now while searching like I'm totally finding I'm looking two accounts is what I'm looking for, two high level accounts, two or maybe three high level accounts, which might be that one might be of that of like Vecta. So like that will be the highest level account, would be that of like Vecta. Since I think that Vecta is from like the last thing. So like I'm looking for maybe like them like finding that the super account of like it's like the scenario that I'm looking for. And as well as that the account, high level account of like the twin role of like the other page. Maybe I'm the one I want to remember that being that the twin of like the other page might be Alice's like actual mother. And then another high level account which will be under like the hierarchy of like power after like Vecta and after like the queen of like the other page would be that of like Andrew's father who would be the Dark Knight. Okay, so like the minimum credential right now is for like Emperor Vecta and like the Dark Knight. I don't think that is the highest like ranking in like the other page. Like I'm just pretty definitely so like definitely I'm still remember to mention that like the Dark Knight could be definitely also like active for father in that the working world of the world about which like as might be totally unaware of and that and the trying like the emperor but that might be a woman and would be inaccurately would be Alice's like active now. might be the case, especially might be very interesting. So like it might be according to like the orders of like the Emperor of Russia, started with the right of like the Emperor of Russia, that like like this whole repeated attack of in like the human traffic by like the offline robots and all of them. All of that will be happening due to like environment like the fundamental differentiation might be and all of that probably desperately trying to like find and get back as her daughter might be the case especially her missing daughter and might be the case tripling of family. So yet like I'm saying about them even while like in the Dark Knight and Emperor Vecta might be other but like still the different like ones like one's like Miller and like the other guy. So you can diving like that way. Then both like temporarily being turned into like human plus sites. One's like Miller and one's like Miller and that other guy which is like full diving. And that way taking control of them. It's like the scenario that I'm going to do like in my respect. And I'm only partly like eventually once like Alice will be like making it to like the Doctor Preamble, something like Alice eventually totally will be totally having that revelation and totally finding out at some point through someone in like the Doctor through some website in like the Doctor at some point like I'm covering that and totally finding out uh this like those kind of like a scenario about like Alice that like as actual parents are like the Dark Knight and like the Emperor of Vecta. So it's like the scenario that I was talking. So like my doctor impressions are like improve like that, so like when maybe like during like the childhood in adult past might have been childhood rivals might have been the case and improve like that before becoming improve like that, like might have been like the childhood rival of like Twinla and before like Twinla became like the fighter and like Vecta became like the improve of the start of the like them during the childhood like Twinla and Vecta might have used to have bigger things like it might have been always Vecta that might have been offer and everything Vecta might be the case and Vecta might have been jealous of Vecta for example might have been the case definitely so like Vecta while Vecta might and that Vecta might have both of them might have wanted to be like the strongest and I'm going to bring that Quilla even eventually ending up with being able to be like that spread of like the athlete of like in the tree. Given that as when being popular for Quilla might have been probably due to that Vector even from a young age, like losing interest in like the big and like heading off to that face difficult challenges and basically so fight to bring down like the offline bosses and to offer and bring down and take over and rule like the Dark Fate as like the absolute emperor rule of like the Dark Fate. That might have been like Vector even from a young age, like speaking way into the challenges which might have certain like Vector, you might have been actually been from like getting the free using the creation of the fate and heading over to like the Dark Fate. Should be like the role of like the Dark Fate and it might have been only to be like Vector's absence being like him the way over that like Finland might have even been able to eventually become like the strong thing like the interplay and become like the administrator of the interplay. It might have been like the case the clean and Finland play during that whole fight between like Kirito and all of them against like Finland in like the top flips and stuff like that. Like, at that point like the players like Finland often mentioning this mysterious person like basically connected to like Kirito's like Kirito showing up to like center fighting Queen and everything. But like so definitely have a different vibe. Queen and Kirito might have been talking about like the real world to Queen back then. Like I'm pretty remember mention what Queen might have been thinking that like Kirito might have been talking about like that like Kirito might have been talking about like the Dark Fate might be along the lines like Queen might have found kind of that as uh, uh, definitely might have recognition and that so Queen might have been thinking from that in that part, like fight like Lilla might have been mostly thinking that basically that like it might have been like Vecta, who might have been like that chapter five report that Lilla from like the Dark Fate sending Kirito to bring down Lilla because like Vecta might have been not satisfied with like being like the role of like the Dark Fate alone, but like might have on the water to like bring down Lilla and take over and rule over like the human country as well. Might be along the lines like Lilla might have been assuming during that whole fight, kind of fight against Lankes and all of them might have been the case. So that way, Linda might have been thinking that Lankes might have been sent by something to after page by Vector might have been more like Linda might have been thinking. And like basically the fact that like the flying minion from like the after even being able to like fly and make it all the way and beyond like the limitations of like flight around like surrounding like the center cathedral and the back then like the near from like the dark back then was able to like fly towards like the very top portions of the center cathedral. That as well might have been doubly been due to like a secret deal which might have been present during that point between like Quinla and Vecta. And Quinla definitely Titon might have had that fear towards like Vecta because of like Vecta uh, being way strong off back Quinla back during the statue periods and everything. So definitely I'm considering like so Quinla might have agreed to this deal and that as part of that deal it might have been for like the flying minion to like probably uh, for like the flying minion to like, and it might be around that time like that maybe a participant like Vecta might have even found out about that where exactly might have been able to like locate where exactly Alice was. Might be also the case definitely not for ambition. So that way like the flying minion showing up to that the top of the center and targeting Alice by his door, and Alice was like climbing that the from the cloud side. So that might have been all, and like the fact that the flying lane was able to like fly and make it so far off top of Vincent together, like all might have been due to and part of like that secret deal, which might have existed at that point between Lab and like Rectangular, like Queen Lab might have been intended to like betray Alice even more by giving Alice up, the internet Alice up to Vecta. Might be the case in exchange of like Vecta, no like waging war uh, against like the humanitarian and taking over like empathy might have been like the case that while this time like Villa might have been stealthy planning on eventually like maybe even taking over like the Dr. and bringing down Vecta and surpassing Vecta by simply creating like the sword ball and it might have been also the case of being a defense. But like I'm due to that situation like Villa might have had like no other option because of like Villa might have been planning on creating an entire army of like sword ball. But like I'm since like during that time like Villa might have only created like a single sword ball like and during that solely due to that situation like Villa might have started to like agree to like the remains of like Vecta and might have once again betrayed, planning on simply betraying Alice, and that might be what like Linda might have been planning. So like as part of the deal, like that flying minion might have been supposed to abduct and take Alice from like the center of the all the way to the interconnect Alice and bring it all the way to like the Dark Ship. Might be the case definitely might be correct. And like up during that point I was like up the certain and eventually I'm looking like what might have happened would be through Kirito okay fighting against like Twin Lab maybe. Like Twin Lab at that point might have felt that basically it was like a trap set by Vecta to trick Twin Lab by making the deal of like the bonding. Alice then in actuality like Vecta might was like tricking trying attempting to like was like tricking Quinla to like only bring down Quinla and to like take over like the uh unitary aspect and that was like the total support like it to like going up all the way to like the north of the center of the other and fighting against like Quinla might have been along the lines at that point like eventually finally Quinla might have felt and might have been like the case definitely might have very also, like the Linux trends right now as for like the system containing information of this final load test that will be destroying like the barrier between the human and after three days. Definitely, I'm looking like this might have been this information might have been totally added most likely by Tikoka after like Tikoka totally finding out like the a single artificial plug like breaking like the taboo index for like the first time. And basically that being has definitely absolutely the method condition that like both the dark might as well as like entropic that might be and to parents and they might have only post power from like the human way to like the dark being like the stem plus black and black. It might have been solely not considered like as like a breakage of like that would like solely due to that during that time like when like not having made it to becoming like the administrator and not having had made up like that way not having made up like the index or anything. So only the factor I know like I'm looking like Kikoka might have been invested. And like so from Kikoka's point of view like Kikoka might have only noticed like this like Kikoka might have witnessed eventually like Twinla becoming like this administrator and like Twinla to be creating the turning changing like the inventory and creating like the type index and everything like for that Kikoka might have only observed might have been the case. It's the preliminary direction. So Since then, Kiboka might have been as part of like experiments and everything to create like the perfect artificial prototype. Since then, like I'm like Kiboka might have been patiently waiting for like at least which like Kiboka I think has already agreed that like to for one of like the human artificial prototype to break the Tattoo index. And once like that way, once like Alice had broken like the Tattoo index, like Kiboka might have totally shockingly assumed that like Alice was like the very first human artificial or like the very first like human from the human company to like cross over to like the doctor, which might definitely not be the case. I think in the so like then like the once like Kiboka then like Kiboka might have focused on all of his attention to Alice and like basically thinking that it Alice was like the first artist to like to break the title and that way Kiboka might have studied like all the details and like journey of that Alice artist in like and maybe that way that Kiboka like through the systems like Kiboka might also have like the power to totally trace back like Alice's like rewind on like Alice's like life until that point until like the point where like Alice had crossed over to like the last until that point like the life that Alice had lived until that point like Kiboka might have reminded it all back and might have shockingly at that only at that point like Kiboka might have shockingly found out that like Alice is not from like the human survey and that like Alice is from actually from like the way that like Alice's parents are actually like Emperor Vecta as well as like the Dark Knight from the Dark might be what might have happened is definitely one ambition. So this might have been what like Kikoka might have softly found out. So Alice might be the case. So like at that point, like Kikoka might have straight away came to like the conclusion that like so that the reason for like Alice being like the soul and like the first human first human from like the human country to break the taboo index that might be solely due to like as being like the first habit to protect to like break the taboo index might have been solely due to like as no at all being from naturally not at all being from like the internet instead actually being from like the other things might be along the lines like people might have came down to like the conclusion of it's definitely my from the reemergence. So maybe at that point that like he might have added this information about like the final law test that will be breaking like the barrier between like the internet and like the dark surface and testing like the malleability of like that type. So definitely it would be that realization, that eventual realization that if you go back then since then might have been completely patiently waiting for and to have that eventually people might have totally hope around like Giga might have totally hope for like eventually in the life journey like towards the development of for like Alice to like until at some point to like have that shocking revelation, shocking realization that like Alice is now from like the industry and that like Alice is from like the doctor and like Alice's broken parents are actually like the emperor of like the doctor emperor Vecta as well as like the Lord Knight. Like the moment Alice would be having this like shocking realization at that point that would be that absolute test for like Alice, which would be testing if like Alice will be able to like as doctor like would be able to like survive such a shocking realization that like it's definitely my prediction. That would be what would be referred to as like testing like the malleability of like Apple different right. So that like some people are going to prove that realization whether as Apple different like survive that realization or not of that attribute code would be totally relatable to or like connectable to like to like the potential of like and like the perfection of like answers artificial like whether it's like absolutely perfect that basically and survives such a strong realization then like and people would be able to like say turn as like would be able to like finalize as like artificial like as like the attribute perfect artificial like which like even after like it would be created into like an artificial into like an AI humanoid like robot like even at that point like basically it will still be able to like survive that absolute realization that basically it's not an actual human and it's like an AI robot, like basically for like that. It was only at that point that like Hikoka will be able to like uh, finalize that like and clone that perfect by cloning that perfect AI uh, AI flashlight of Alice like Hikoka would be able to like create like an entire army of like AI robots who would be able to like who would be totally perfectly who won't crash at all and would be totally perfectly fine on like the realization that like they are not actual humans, even though they will be like externally looking exactly human like the proof that they are not actually humans and like they are AI and like to realize this truth and for all this like perfect AS to be totally okay with it. that basically that this would be that malleability that like Fukuoka has already been revealed to be like after like and so like as to like how this final load test would be connected to like Alice's life in like the virtual world of Underworld and everything would be through such a manner that we might particularly and question and sitting on it. So like I'm putting like probably putting like Fukuoka after like Alfred broken like the radio like need Fukuoka might have like trace back and just like journey all the way to like top indicate Fukuoka might have found out that like Vecta and that might from like the started bring up like answers actual parent then like also Fukuoka might have shortly found out that like they are humans. It's like actually humans that like the Emperor Vecta is like an actual human, the ruler of like then entirety of like the last race like an actual human. So like that Fukuoka might have only like check Vecta and like trace back Vecta's like life journey and then might have shortly found out that basically for like in like Vector's like journey on rewinding it back like Kikoka might have shortly found out that basically the current ruler of like the human race like Twinla and Vector were like childhood friends and about like the duel back then and basically how Vector was like far stronger than Twinla and like that way like I'm sure like it might have been at that point, like finding that it might have been obvious for like Kikoka might have had all this like shocking revelations that way. So like the attack by the orcs and goblins on like the repeated attack by the orcs and goblins on like the Kimber and all that was like according to memory was like Emperor Vector desperately the mother Vector like desperately something for her friends uh, along the lines of according to memory Kikoka might have figured it's definitely not friends. So like from Kikoka's point of view, Kikoka at that point might have seen how like that well Vecta was like along the lines of like Vecta was like far from like Quinla. So like Quinla was like the ruler of like the time like Quinla was like the ruler of the and Vecta's like the ruler of the dark and there existing this barrier between like the human race and like dark race. So like that like once like the eventually like Kikoka might have totally for definitely for like an eventual scenario where like Alice might definitely find out that basically that Alice like actual parents are from like the darker way and as well which like from the darker way. So like the moment like the roller of the Vecta would be getting back and like there won't be any more orders from Vecta. There won't be any more attack by the offline goblins on like it will be along the lines of like if I made of the definitely not the amateur. So like at that point, like from the Cooper's point of view, it was a kind of Tony Price that basically the moment Alice totally finds out the truth that basically Alice is like contact with Arthur and Alice is like the lot of like the Emperor Vector like the Arthur. At that point, definitely like the truth about like whether Alice is like actually a perfect just like light or not like if that's as if that like crashes or like survives that realization of that absolute truth or not would be won't be like the only thing that would be happening but also once like if the can survives that then like basically the barrier between like the dark race as well as like the human race as well between like the offline goblins and like between like the humans as well would be ending up getting broken and basically there will be no more barrier between like the humans and like the offline goblins and like the dark race and like the human race and basically everyone would be able to like crossover and like move freely between like the Hilltop and Dark without any attack between them. Might be along the lines like people might have believed and might have felt and people might have also felt that since like but might happen to my would be probably a whole lot new to the person would be a whole lot stronger than Gwenda. So definitely at that point definitely like through Alice like the barrier between like the human free and like the doctor free will be come undone and basically at that point even if like Gwenda desire for like such a boundary and a barrier between like the human race and like the other race still through Alice like and through again through Alice through like the missing like will be a whole lot stronger than Gwenda. Definitely Gwenda at that point will be forced to like okay, agree to Vecta to basically to not have a barrier to probably that with to listen to like Adam and to not have a barrier between like human race and would be along the lines like Kiboga might have felt the film and this might be the reason for like in that message of like that information of like that final note as like that uh, along with like the match testing like the malleability of like the like basically the fact that like the barrier of like the between like the interface and the dark I think like something along the lines of like it comes and that even seeing return would be connected to like such to such a scenario which like people might be only believing and hoping that will be how like eventually things will be come to like definitely might be and hence it will be Adam. So like definitely like for instance right now that's for like is right now big cycle is talking about like super user accounts of like nights and urban in that to like so instead of like the sort of account of like border Asia which definitely has already revealed as like this lot of that like humans and intervene like what's the word of the world strong calculation. So the blue very much for like exactly like how in that the doctor thing and that the forest vector might be or like emperor vector might be like the very top in like the first position of like the hierarchy in a similar manner like the super account of like forest Asia might be definitely the highest above the power uh, that we can there might be that that was related like the their existing like different accounts of like vector and station and they are looking like the super account of station will be definitely vacant and basically that super account of and that will be the solution for like station never having appeared in like the human surface. And basically the fact that like Linda was able to that realistically roll over like the university as like an administrator and that time might have been all due to like the absence of like the uh, due to that the absence of like forestation like due to like the super account of like forestation line vacant might be the case limited the league so and the clear to by the mention that like in the university like the highest powerful super account would be that of Blackboard station, definitely under attention. Yet for areas we like conveniently not just straight away suggest like the super account of one state here, but like instead suggesting like super user accounts of Black and night and noble belonging to that as one. That would be temporarily might be due to that Figa may be secretly allied to Springbo as well as Kayaba. It's also definitely might be very encouraging. So definitely yet like like both Springbo as well as like Figa would be right now sitting on that absolute big acting in front of that Picoca and that the reason would be most likely due to that them wanting to that approach like the situation with that absolute self which will be all due to like accordingly to like the orders of like but might be the case because the reason will be most likely due to that even with like the forceful infiltration of that into like versions of the located by Miller and his like team still stealth will be of like such extreme high priority maybe for like Kaiba as well as like Frida as well as like Ringo might be the case of supplementary because only due to like Pikoka being like an possibly being like an extremely important figure like like they might have like they might have to face like serious sort of oppression like if they even attempt to like eliminate Pikoka that might draw that might definitely draw a lot of attention to that posting of location and that would be like the last thing that Kaiba as well as like Tiga, as well as like Ringo might be wanting. It's definitely my good friend. So like stealth it might be folded with like stealth being of like extreme high priority. Might be the reason for like having the permission of clearing open like Tiga as well as right now the things might be allied to like Kaiba. Totally keeping like the crucial information of like the highest uh, of the safer account uh, of like South Asia, which might be definitely that of like South Asia in when it comes to like the demographic. You take that crucial information from as soon as right now about like full type and suggesting like go for user accounts of like the knights and nobles to like as soon as I see the creating settling information and from the like Chicoka might be hopefully unaware of like the even like the existence of like maybe for the of like the safer accounts of like God of Vecta as well as like station might be also the case certainly when like it might have been for that area of like handling might have been all done by Frida. So like maybe it might be Frida alone. That might be even aware of like the difference of like super account of like or station as well as that might be also the case definitely one for it. Or like I'm different that it might have been that information might have been consciously just hidden from Picoca might be the case definitely one for it. And due to that according to that kind of orders like and put in that Frida might have still be created like a vacant super accounts of like maybe God of Asia as well as like the in like the power with like the highest power for like just for those like eventual plans of like to like take over like within the location and hand over and uh um, and to like at that point for like to have like Miller and Pro to be able to like for Miller to take like the super account of like Vecta even if that Dakota like like considering like the worst case scenario in like a lockdown situation, even in such a scenario for like with that as to be able to use take advantage of the super accounts of that super account of that in Vecta to be able to like get the status and basically to be able to like get out of like reset the positive that will not being able to like do it within like 24 hours to get sees like answers that to it. Might be the case that minimum crimson. Maybe the is not like Giga right now about to say something and is me remaining silent as well. Like that might have been definitely Giga actually about to say in front of like people about like even though that even though that operators can't access that can only access like the citizens that accounts from like in the interface, like the fact that like the left and thing can like only access when traders can only access like super account from like the last page. This might have been like the information that he might right now might have been actually about to tell in front of people. Yet like the system it might be only due to that info as well as like he steadily most likely see clearly like I about that like they might have kept that information from people right now. Definitely my good generation. So by also keep and this might be the reason for like Giga remaining silent about like the existence of like super account of like one Stasia and not straight away recommending that to as one of that like people have plan of like basically having as one of either uh, have cost like the way to like Kirito or like and for them both to like get and to like the world and Altar and that way to like bring like the like use of like analysis like perfect like towards like what like the sub control room like for that to not be possible and basically for like so that like the infiltrators to succeed even before like even before like Alice could so anything Alice in like the field to ensure this like number different like Trigger might be purposely right now remain silent about like the super account like on stage might be the day that leak might be the definitely I continue with the rotation right now go to the that both not only ring of that trigger as well might be probably putting on that aspect take action in front of like Fukuoka as well as Sona. For that approach that might be the actual representations that Lima will frame so that kind of might be representations for like the eventual scenario to be like even after like Asuna will be diving into like the virtual world of like underworld that they are looking like as being like the biggest target biggest obstacle for like Asuna in being able to like both get to Kirito into like interacting with Kirito and that way trying to like get Kirito attempt to like get Kirito to like turn back to like normal as well as like to even get Alice like as well as to either even get uh, Alice to like the world and Alta so that like as one of like help with like the Alice is like sending it to like sub control from husband that for both this like tasks of like as one delivering like Alice being that absolute major of the first step in something that I'm still being on so yeah and I'm like that way, like Asuna losing a lot of this time, solely due to like Alice, the belief and things that then obstacles like really scenario that I'm like this, like the belief like the ambition right now as for like the Dark Knight Commander Vixur, like we're talking about like the chance for peace on realizing like the elimination of like like I'm to bring the belief like the Vixur plan would be the belief to like wage a war against like the human race against like the humans in like the human race, but like I'm looking like his actual intent won't be at all to like destroy like the entirety of like the human race, but just that only intent would be Alice alone because like I'm still thinking of my book and that like definitely Alice like Victor might be like the actual father like Alice definitely might of like the original Alice definitely might have the reaffection. So definitely might have the impression for like that Dark Knight who raised with like arms towards like Alice when Alice had crossed like the rain to like the Dark Knight basically that Dark Knight might have been definitely this very same Vixur might be the case and like Vixur might be like that the father of like and definitely my friend and I'm still thinking about friend that and might have in like the recent past like and might have wandered out to like the end mount and from like the Dark Knight and that way might have got adopted by like the father of Selka might have been what might have happened especially might be the reimbursement and all that happening before that Selka being born might have been what might have happened is definitely might get the pressure. So definitely like I'm sitting to my presentation that like the repeated attacks by like the fox and goblins or like the hint that like might be totally according to like the orders of like the emperor but that might be the case. We will see that the same role of like the darker fate. This definitely might be the ambition that emperor Vecta might naturally be that the wife of Vixur, which definitely also might be the condition. That way, like the mother of Alice, that the mother of Alice might the emperor of Vecta, it's definitely might be the range. Might be like that with the representation definitely might be the range. So like definitely this chance for peace that like Vixur talks about would be totally would be to like finally definitely with like the elimination with like just believing thing that Linda has been eliminated like so we're totally thinking of like basically waging that war against like kilometer and like during that war like they will be while waging that war to like totally focus on like basically uh finding Alice and basically to wage a war while ensuring that basically to while keeping the focus on Alice to like basically in the name of leveraging that war like basically for them to like totally go full on and full scale in like trying to like bring back Alice would be what would be the best like chance for peace that like this right now is talking about because like Alice would be the only target left to get because lot of fact would be like the only hit that it's definitely not the Emerson. So I believe this considering would be what like this would be planning and everything like once like Emperor Vecta as well will be finding out about like Windows like elimination like I'm looking for like definitely at that point like as well definitely deciding to destroy like the barrier and basically wage that war against like the Democratic and with the sword intent to like bring back Helen is definitely my secondary impression. But like I'm looking like with that absolute through intent of peace of like and like the only intent of like actually bringing back Alice like once Vector along with like the Dark Knight wakes up along with like an entire army of like cops and goblins will be going up to like the barrier and will be attacking like the barrier like at that point like by the time that they will be standing right in front of like the barrier and like at that very last second is when I'm destroying the diving of that Miller as well as like the team member of Miller will be happening and like bring the team member of that Miller totally full diving in and seeing like that way taking over the control of like the and playing as like the character of like the sort of account of like the artist of like the artificial super user account of like the artificial spotlight of that Vixur as well as like Vecta. It's like the scenario that I'm saying that when the at that very last second like therefore intent of like this like for peace to get Alice back like and that very last second as they will be about to announce that war and destroying like the battle of that very last second I'm different like uh both like Vixur as well as like Vecta like turning into like even though the appearance will be remaining like the same like them both turning into like human flashlight and basically turning into like Miller as that way Miller as well as like his team member controlling them it's like doing the scenario that way straight away like I'm different like Miller as well as like his team member like will be also having like the memories as well from the actors that they were with it. So like looking around and seeing all this like huge army of tank goblins like assembled right beside them like and different like that straight away declaring that war and basically to destroy like the barrier. Like as well as like his team members as well, their target as well was like Alice like so the Liam like the remaining commanders from like the Dark Breach won't be at all realizing or like he like recognize at all like the change happen that would have and by then according to my memory, would have happened to like Vector as well as like Vixur. Both of them being turned into like it was like definitely my comparison. So like I feel like it would only go like the very end like the remaining commanders would be even realizing about this that they have been taken Vixur as well as like they have been taken over by humans of like that being the scenario that I'm going to like I'm not sure. My other ambitions are like once like the war films itself like Alice's leaders try to like fight in like the front lines of like the war and protect like the human country. But like Asuna would be like desperately trying to like stop Alice from going because of like Asuna having like Asuna's highest priority of like basically not only saving Kirito but also like basically having us Alice's like life cube like protect not falling into like the hands of like the infiltrators as well. So where that point of different like the whole fight happening between like Asuna and Alice while Asuna will be trying to like stop Alice and Alice would be trying to like to and protect like the and fighting like the front lines and protect like the hill country. But like I'm different like in that fight between like Asuna and Alice, I'm between like Alice eventually ending up taking both of them taking bridge to a certain extent. And like Alice, since like Asuna would be only trying to like keep Alice from going to fight like the war, and like instead like Alice would be like afraid to like fight the war, so like Alice will be bring that fight won't be giving any consideration to the suspicious Azuna. Definitely still by information that like Alice will be totally seeing finding Azuna extremely suspicious. So like Alice bringing out her full strength and fighting against like Azuna, that resulting in like Azuna taking significant injuries and like that way Alice totally overpowering Azuna and like Alice heading off to fight in like the front line. But like right then itself like Alice will be overpowering Azuna and about to leave. At that point itself, like the war expanding to like the point war from like the latter expanding to like the point of like it might be during that time that like Miller as like Emperor of Vecta would be totally not supporting Alice from herself. So like that way like Emperor Vecta abducting Alice right in front of that Kipto is like the finale that I'm trying. So like that at that point like Kipto would that would be such a shock for like Kipto because like while Alice would be taken away like at that point like everything Alice would be screaming out for like Kipto. It's like the scenario that I'm doing and that resulting in like Kipto probably having that shock and like that whole deja vu feeling of like in the past like Alice having been taken away from like Kipto while right by an Indian night and all that. So definitely that as well as like I'm referring definitely with like Higa having revealed about like this like of like the possibility of like a forgiveness possibly being like the cure to like basically turn Kirito back to normal. Like so that until that point I'm preferring like Asuna would be doing her absolute maximum to have Kirito turn back normal and be able to like access Kirito's like self image and everything. But like I'm regardless of all the attempts of like Asuna, all of that will be failing. Very good scenario that I'm looking for. And I'm still thinking about the permission for like the scenario being like it would be like it would be that forgiveness kind of like a situation that will be resulting in like Kirito being able to return back normal. And I'm considering that forgiveness kind of like situation happening exactly while like the Ep3 night Alice will be abducted and taken away by most likely Minda, like the scenario that I'm looking and Alice will be screaming out for like Kirito. And at that point, like while Kirito could be in like going through that shock and there's a kind of like feeling. At that point, I'm looking like both Fujo as well as like the original Alice who uses like magic and all that. Like since like Fujo after Fujo's elimination, like Fujo had taken like the PhD module of like I think had taken like the PhD module of like original Alice with him like so like the spirit at point I'm looking for like the spirit of like both Fujo as well as Alice would be at that point would be definitely like doing their absolute best to like appear in front of like Kirito and basically definitely with like Alice once again getting taken away like and bring that resulting in like Fujo the state of like as well as like Dorian Alice like going their absolute maximum and you should appear in front of Kirito and them actually succeeding in like appearing in front of Kirito and like basically them both like the state of Kirito as well as like Kirito would be at that point shocked like seeing like the spirit of Kirito as well as the state of Dorian Alice in front of like Kirito and them doing that absolute for giving up being like Kirito at that point it's like the scenario that I'm saying and that missing element of that forgiveness like resulting in like that instant return happening for like Kirito and get to run back to like normal in front of like Asuna who would have lost all hopes at that point is like the scenario that I'm in that way that's an absolute shock for Asuna as well especially like the scenario that I'm putting but like I'm by then like the in that night Alice would have been abducted and taken by Mila to uh, to a certain extent of like a distance, definitely member orientation. So like at that point, once like the total run back to like a normal like understanding like Asuna totally being shocked and basically Asuna totally uh like at that point the totally knowing that basically Hans is in danger and he has to like save Hans. So like I'm looking like Asuna and Kirito probably running off after like Miller and like to fight and bring down Miller and like get so and to like say so as like in the scenario that and at that point I was doing like the actual whole war happening where like I'm just like I'm like Asuna would be fighting off against that team member of like Miller who would be like who would be like at that point would be Vixur as like the dark commander Vixur as like a human touch like and like so that way Asuna fighting off against like while Kirito would be fighting off against like Miller at that point is like Miller as like the emperor of Vecta, like the legal scenario that I'm looking over and my why all the remaining commands from like the last three as well as like the human as well as the Indian knights like remaining Indian knights will be all fighting beside also fighting in that exact locations like the scenario that I'm looking over the new conference right now that basically since like the end of itself was like Miller and reflecting number three like the opening of like a series of like and the police so much revolution that like exactly like the like history and legend and the tale about like the Forest Asia in like the in a similar tale might have been definitely present for like the Emperor of Vecta as well as like his own personal comment that might be the case definitely. So like then what this entire time might have been statues like I was in like during like the creation of like the working world of underworld once like the concept of like and so once like these super accounts of like Vecta once like super account was like of like Vecta might have been created by Kaiba or like by Tiga like at that point I'm just like also like a legend connected to like Emperor Vecta as well might have been also created so straight away the creation of like the entry waiver account of Vecta while creating that like at the Tiga of Kaiba might have also created like the field home where this like was likely the stone statue of like Vecta and this like person that might come and might have been present it's definitely my trend. And like the tail connected to that might have been that which is possibly having that villanistic people elected after fate. That might have caused possible chaos elected after fate in like the ancient past and like that way someone might have that way eventually latched the industry of elected after fate might have revolted against them and collectively might have managed to struggle their way into that, pouring them and sealing them into the slack sealed. So they home might be along the lines of like the legend or tale connected to like the emperor of dynastic emperor of cap might have been definitely memorable. So and so my the impressions that so like it might be that seal that's like right now for open once Miller as well as it's team member has full dive into like the working world of control has Vecta as well as that command might be what might have happened to certainly memory frames. So already almost everyone in like the last three, including like the women and off and versions and like the last nations and everyone would be only aware of the legend or tale connecting to the villanistic that emperor Vecta from that ancient past and everything. In a similar manner, I feel like how like even to like orphan like they have their legend and faith connected to like the god of Asia. Might be the case certainly might be the case of the actually one. So like definitely with like the current entrance of middle of SSP member. I'm referring that with like the entrance of Vecta. I'm totally referring that those exact four orcs and goblin leaders as well as like that chancellor of like the guild dark mage guild like and that these for like dynastic uh, powerful leaders with some wanted to be like eliminate for these like I'm definitely first of all I was trying to show that that dark mage chancellor might have been like ex-wife and might actually be like the actual mother of that children and its super use magic. Might have been the case, especially when the ambition. So the ambition that that realistic dark mage while like the Simbas when she might have been like the wife of Victor. Like at that point, I was like she might have been totally disappointed in Alice even from such a young age, like not being able to perform like the high level magic that dark mage mother might have been able to perform might be the case even the issue like I'm just like it might have been her level maybe to then abandoning Alice that might have resulted in Alice wandering to that mountain and ending up in the interview might have been what might have happened in Mr. Master Universe. So after that she might have started her dark mage guild and everything might have been what might have happened. She might have left Vixur and might have created her own dark mage guild and everything might have been what might have happened to the Universe and everything. So then what Vixur might have been desperately trying to find and save and bring back Alice from the Universe. So that might have been like the case certainly and that might have been like the reason for great extent to a certain extent of the off and goblin attacks on the interface. At quite another extent of off and goblin attacks on the interface might have been definitely connected to this exact um uh dark mage woman as well as the realistic of and broken heroes might have been their feminism where they uh it has been revealed that they doesn't want peace it might have been their act that and the feminism majority or a great extent of that the interface the off and goblin might have been certainly manipulation while it might be the other extent of the attack of off and goblins on the interface might have been according to the order of the uh, that might command walk into like get back, and definitely might be the case definitely going for it. But like my comprehension that like the Black Miller as well as the team member Black and right now, but for like them probably Miller probably straight away getting along with like those four villanistic leaders in like the last three. It's like the scenario and that Miller straight away making the like subordinate and like those villanistic uh, four villanistic leaders in like the last three who might start leaders like that the Vixur like will be totally getting along with like Miller and his like team members like the scenario that everything and like straight away like with like that chain room being opened like Miller straight away. Definitely I'm looking right now that Vixur like confronting Miller and like it's a little bit of a shock that seeing like this like Emperor Vecta from like that ancient history that coming alive and everything. So definitely my brain. So in that interaction between the Vixur and like Miller and like Vixur properly finding out that basically Miller like I mean like the Emperor Vecta is also after like Alice thought might be like the invent scenario that I'm doing. So like the Vixur trying to like resist and stop Miller, but like I'm saying like Miller will be so into awkward and currently I'm looking like Miller will be the strongest individual in like the entire episode after it might be the case of New England. So uh, so like that way like like by trying to like stop Miller like instead of taking serious injury like the scenario that I'm like okay, like I'm looking for like Miller along with like his team member will be stepping out of like the palace and basically would be like asking for directions to like the interpretation they would think might be like the new information and along the way like I'm looking like in between that time like I'm looking like in between that time itself like I'm looking like both for villanistic leaders like not only getting like the news about like the return of like member of Vecta and again they will be totally pleased because of like the incentive stream of course like they could automatically come into like being like a villanistic one. So like I'm those four leaders like totally teaming up and like them totally finding Vecta and basically them totally deciding to like help Vecta uh, like and like Vecta would be also like totally accepting them to as like his team members as like subordinate like the scenario that I'm bringing straight away Vecta and them totally would be telling Vecta that basically that now is their chance and that like now they have to like assemble a huge army of like Wakanda that basically to destroy that the inventory and everything might be along the lines of strong leaders will be telling and trying to convincing aspect again Bella and them to bring aspect or agreeing to that and like them to bring like the army of black ops and was heading to like the badger and destroying like the badger and that Miller will be as well as the team Miller will totally Miller will be certainly focused on like Alice and Alice alone while like those four leaders will be commanding all the remaining ops and governing army the majority of the dogs when moving army look that appear intentional to spoil like then that appears in the place of new information. Although my brother mentions that like after like clean up elimination, like I'm with like right now with even revealing that basically that the chancellor of like the mace kid like knowing about like right now in the and like knowing about like the secret of like the immortality of Quinla. So that would be most likely due to like since like Quinla naturally had no gotten eliminated since like Quinla like spirit kind of thing was like always shown escaping along with like certain thing definitely that spirit of like Quinla might have escaped all the way to like the darker way and might have showed up in front of that dark mage that chance the left woman of like that means it's definitely my good appreciate. So like I'm like maybe right now but maybe might have been her that like Queen Lab might have suspected of like having sent Kirito to like the top of the system to like fight Queen Lab might be the case definitely my good like the past like then both like Queen Lab as well as like that chancellor of the lab means might have had like that might have been maybe like in childhood something like this and also like a that and before which like that the chancellor of like the that means might have injury left pocket the that we might have been the case of millimeter. So like still like considering due to like the chancellor of like the dark mage having that experience and like and when that might have kept that whole connection even to like the near person might have been the case that million friends and that might be the reason for like the flying million like from like the sun compared to like targeting and basically even being able to like fly it so far up of to like the top of Vincent and all that might have been according to like the secret theories between actually and that as well as like chancellor of like the happening might have been the case of the female trends. So like maybe that might have been like a realistic attempt by like the chancellor of like that maybe that woman to like basically to capture and bring hands to like the rapidly and like to get that to make like the poor Vixur like suffer by eliminating and uh, in front of them might be like the plan, realistic plan of that chancellor of that means it might be the case the claim of the remedy. So like the claim of the friend that fundamental threshold of the friend like after like queen last elimination like queen last spirit and long sexual spirit might have straight away head over to like the doctor towards like the chancellor of like that towards like the chancellor woman of the dark means and might have wanted to like find out the truth from her as to like why she sent to like eliminate Greenland or that. And in that interaction, like I'm thinking like Greenland might have found the truth from like the chancellor of like the Dark region might be the case definitely with and then like Greenland might have offered like that chancellor woman to like only accept like Greenland's like spirit onto that chancellor woman so that like the Greenland might have offered like the chancellor woman in exchange for like the body for Greenland to like give the chancellor woman like the knowledge of like basically Greenland's like immortality, secret and everything might be what might have happened to the minimum current. So like that might have happened and in the present like like Greenland spirit might be contained within like the body of like that Venus chancellor woman. And that might be how like the point when like the chancellor woman um, might have learned of like through accepting Venus spirit might be how like chancellor woman might have even gained like the knowledge of like gain the knowledge of like Greenland's like mortality, secret of like Greenland's mortality. Might be what might have happened is definitely member and definitely on the point like the Greenland as well after like into have Greenland like continuing electric Greenland as well might not still right now would be fixed in her mind that he is elected when all of them had basically like since like a lot of them had like worked together like since like Cardinal as well as like and so since all of them had totally worked together to like protect like the interplay like after like Greenland's elimination Greenland might have been extremely embraced towards like the interplay and might have won the absolute destruction of like the interplay what they for fight to like the so dearly. In fact, what my permission to them right now talking about like that chancellor woman would be most likely having Greenland spirit contained within her like so like I'm going to earlier that personality shift I'm going maybe what we have happening at times between like the Korean chancellor woman as well as like Greenland personality as well might be the case that they will premise. So like Greenland definitely once again the straight to like once again go back to like the country and once again roll over as like that absolute administrator. So definitely that would be also like the very same goal of like that chancellor woman aspect definitely my preparation. So like definitely right now with like and I'm looking right now that them both could be well and fully aware of like the barrier getting weakened as well. So like about that I'm referring. So like and since like there's no administrator in like the interview right now definitely I'm referring like that the chancellor woman with like the green last contained with like to be totally getting ready to like to launch to wage that war as well large scale war against like the industry to completely destroy like the industry and have like the outside goblin like take over like the human industry as well and for her to like make it to the throne at like weighted off and for her to like all over like the industry will be about like she will be totally planning the chancellor woman will totally planning is definitely so like even with like the entrance of like Miller as like Vecta like and still about bring like Killa as well as like the Chancellor woman to be stealthily strategizing that they using play know the secret of immortality like I was bring like both Killa as well as like the Chancellor woman would be totally or contemplating in that like still regardless of like Vecta being stronger than them they will be able to like eventually outlive even Vecta so be along the lines like they will be thinking for like until that point like for them to like still even before that itself like to for them to like secretly figure out a strategy to like eventually betray Vecta and by putting on that fake action in front of like Vecta so like basically they are on Vecta's side to like but yet like to eventually patiently wait for that absolute chance while Vecta will be have it's like guard down to like only eventually betray Vecta and to attempt to like eliminate Vecta and that way to be like the my membership and that way to be after like eliminating Vecta like the team member of like member like that are my commander won't be like after like them would be even interacting after like the chancellor will be interacting with like the team member of like member like at that point like they will be noticing that like it's like member alone like Vecta alone that like the biggest target that like that Dark Knight commander will be easily to like trick and it will be along the lines of the conducting as well as like the sensitive movement we talk about that continues supplement so like that way like will make that absolute betrayal and basically after like the after Miller as well as like the team member of Black Miller that was like currently start night like after both of their strength like the next moment would be definitely like the chancellor moment might be the darkness chancellor moment might be the case supplement so like eventually if you like make that absolute betrayal simply betrayal and basically to eliminate Miller as well as uh, Vecta as well as like that Dark Knight command and then to like take off like the entirety of like both like the human surface as well as like the dark surface as and to roll over like the entirety of like the human surface and the dark surface as like that to roll up to be what like already like the chancellor woman as well as like when la spirit within like the chancellor woman will be already planning and preparing for that he might be the game definitely not but about to make a difference and putting like in a scenario where like where like the chancellor of like the age kid like like that chancellor woman with like who they most likely having like gender split contained within her like them according to their plan like will be making that still the ultimate betrayal of like Miller while while by then like the whole war will be going on at like TikTok and as you know he's struggling against like Miller and like the team member of Black Miller that Dark Knight Commander, like while they were only struggling like in that whole fight, like I'm like that even just can be betrayal really happening like that Dark Mage Chancellor woman on like Miller, which would be Miller to get of the eventually ending up being for make helpful in like the fight of Black Hero as well as like as an after like same as like the scenario that I'm saying. And also the name of the friends like right now like the person that like Miller as well as like his team members entrance as like Vecta and like the Dark Knight Commander like and according to the present so like Pixar like totally attempting to like stop Miller from going up and then the fight happening and Linda Vecta totally is still offering indicating Pixar as like the scenario that I'm looking and that way that at that point like I'm like Pixar totally taking the cues and like running away from like the Dark Tree to like the steadily to like the interface and recreating to like the interface to like the want like the humans in like interface because of like which are only prioritizing these so much like early. And like which are in that would also hoping to like basically be able to like make it good and to finding Alice before like vectors should be also put that in the like conducted probably causing like the thing to like the interview and like my sheer points and like I don't like looking like this ending up finding Alice definitely my memory and that way this is probably eventually ending up being part of like those teams like the scenario that I'm looking and through which are like I'm looking like this is how I'm looking like so complete Alice will be at that point finding out that like Alice that naturally is from like the dark and is actually success or is also like the scenario that I was and that like the stuff was like the dark knight who had to raise the arms towards like Alice when like the past like Alice sort of like the dark of one like the cave in like second the page like the dark and of the battle that will be along the lines of all the revelations happening through mix up to the night and at that point like the scenario that I'm looking at